welcome back to Interpreting the Stars. For today I have another collab with my buddy Mike from Did You See That, where we discuss yet another Jet Li film, and I know that none of these are perfect, and actually a lot of them are corny because of the decade that they came out in, but I've always had a lot of fun with a majority of them. And today we have a martial arts variation of Romeo and Juliet, if you believe it or not. It's Romeo Must Die. Romeo Must Die focuses on two business families, both alike in dignity, in fair California where we lay our scene. On one side we have the Chinese business family, on the other we have the black business family. And when people start dying on both sides, they begin to blame each other. And Han, played by Jet Li, decides to try to do a little detective work to try to figure out the culprit behind the killings, and along the way he meets and falls for Trish, the daughter of the black business mogul that his family just so happens to hate. First of all, I'm going to give a huge shout out and thanks to Mike for joining me today for this review. We'll be hearing what he has to say about Romeo Must Die in just a hot second! First, let me talk a little bit about my general thoughts. Now, obviously, we've had about 1.5 million versions of Romeo and Juliet out there, right? So much, in fact, that it's a little bit hard to pick a favorite amongst them. But you can sometimes pick out the really interesting adaptations that really change it up. West Side Story is an example, not only because it's a musical, but because it's also a modern-day take on racism, being the main reason why two households might hate each other. Romeo Must Die does something incredibly similar because obviously there is some racism between a group of Chinese and a group of African Americans, but it kind of goes a step further here because it also adds in some cultural stereotypes as well, such as vindication. Jet Li is going after the people that killed his brother in a very Chinese martial arts film way. They don't specifically use the word honor, but in my opinion it's kind of implied. Jet Li does a great job in the film with his fighting skills, which, that's always the case, but I'd actually say that he has a little bit of Jackie Chan in the film as well, since he uses a lot of props to fight, which in my eyes was always a Jackie Chan trait. The casting overall in Romeo Must Die is not bad. We have the late Aaliyah, who tragically died in a plane accident not too long after this film came out. I actually think she did a great job in this film. She had way too short of a life, unfortunately. And DMX is in the movie too, who, as Michael also mentioned, no longer with us either. But other than those two, we also have Isaiah Washington, D.B. Woodslide, who I know from other projects as well, like Buffy the Vampire Slayer. Anthony Anderson is in this film, and just a bunch of people that I did recognize, even though they're 20 years younger here than they are now. I think in general, it's an entertaining movie, but it does have some flaws. And those I'll talk about in a second, after Mike talks about his thoughts. Go ahead, Mike.
And everyone over at Interpreting the Stars, what is going on? It's been some time since I appeared on Dave's channel, but he did recently ask me to check out a movie called Romeo Must Die and join him as part of a collaboration. So firstly, I've got to give an apologies to Dave for the amount of time it's taken me to get this video over to him. But yeah, I recently did check out Romeo Must Die, which is a movie that came out in the year 2000 by a director I'd never really heard of before, and checking out the cast list in this, we've got Delroy Lindo, Jet Li, Aaliyah, DMX. Yeah, there's some big names in this movie. I'm not going to really go over the plot, but I do want to thank Dave firstly for having me onto the channel and checking out another edition of Jet Li's movies. So what can I ultimately say about Romeo Must Die? Yeah, it's a little bit of a strange one to comment on because I feel like at times in this movie there's far too many plot lines. Got about family relationships, got about love relationships, we've got about these dealings in this film. There's just too much going on at points. But what I will praise right out the gate, again, Jet Li is awesome. I really love seeing his martial arts, and his acting is okay, but I think the martial arts element of it really kind of elevates his acting ability, because you've always come to these movies so far, for the ones that Dave's made me check out, for his martial arts skills, and yet again he doesn't fail to impress. He's always impressive in these movies. And I think definitely each director of these particular movies that he's doing, I think really just help utilize and really make the most of his skills. And I think really that is what showcases the most in this movie. I also have got to admit that I particularly enjoyed a specific camp scene with Jet Li and Aaliyah's characters. I'm not going to go really too much in this movie for spoilers' sake if you guys haven't seen this, but if Dave decides to go into spoilers, well, that's up to him, of course. But one thing I will say is ultimately, it's a shame that Aaliyah did pass away in reality and also DMX. So it's a shame to kind of look back on this movie and note that at least 2 of the cast members have unfortunately passed away. And what they maybe could have done in terms of maybe singing and also acting kind of going forward. I would have loved to really have seen what Aaliyah particularly would have had in terms of future roles and what she could have maybe really brought to future roles as well, because I didn't think particularly in this movie she was that bad. I think ultimately where this film kind of fails, besides the awesome martial arts action which we tend to expect as of right now, is it's an undeveloped script. The romance between Aaliyah and Jet Li I didn't really fully buy into, unfortunately, but I will say that overall I enjoyed this movie. I kind of just found myself sitting back, relaxing, enjoying it, taking it in. A little bit too long, again, for sure. I would say I think the runtime could have maybe been trimmed down a little bit, but I will praise at times the cinematography in this is great. There is actually some set pieces in here I thought was really well done. There's certain shots that I really think really kind of helped this film pop out a little bit as well, in my opinion. But yeah, overall, I wouldn't really say it's my favourite Jet Li movie I've checked out this far in this kind of filmography with Dave, but I did enjoy it. And I will say, is it the one I'm going to rush back and see again? I'm not particularly going to say yes, but I'm never going to say I wouldn't check it out again because I didn't hate the movie. So anyway, Dave, my man, thank you for having me on once again for a collaboration. Really, really appreciate it. And yeah, I enjoyed this movie. Back over to you, my man, and your main thoughts on Romeo Must Die.
Thank you to Mike for joining me again for a Jet Li film. I enjoyed hearing your thoughts on the movie, and I think that you and I mostly agree with the film. If anything, nostalgia kicks up my entertainment a little bit more, but honestly, it's not by much because, like I said, it has issues that I will talk about. But before I do that, make sure that you guys go right on over to Mike's channel, Did You See That? I left a link to that in my description box below. Head over there, sub to his channel, show him some love. He's doing a ton of pre-release reviews over there, and he's doing a phenomenal job on each and every single one. I highly recommend his channel. Go check it out. So anyways, back to its connections to Romeo and Juliet. Okay, so if we are being completely honest, its connections to the Shakespeare play are slim to none. It's very, very basic. You have 2 households that hate each other, and you also have 2 people within the households that fall in love with each other. But everything else is essentially ignored, including the ramifications of forbidden love. So in Romeo and Juliet, you constantly had this overbearing feeling that they shouldn't be together. You know, it's not smart, someone's gonna end up hurt. It's called a tragedy for a reason. But in this, they don't really care so much that they like each other. They're just having fun. Jet Li's showing off by doing martial arts stuff. Kids are cheering. His love interest is laughing. There's no tension. Heck, even the big heads in these companies, her father, his father, they aren't hateful people, really. They both talk to their kids like, hey, listen, I know you like this person, but, you know, maybe you shouldn't spend so much time with them. That's like light annoyance at best. You know, it's not, I'm going to disown you and disinherit you and send people off to kill you, like it should be. Films like this need that tension. And like Mike had said, they also need to keep things a bit more straightforward and not have so many plot lines. I mean, they definitely focused way too hard on the business mogul side of the film. I mean, we're talking crime and capitalism, business sabotage, all that from 2 different companies that I still don't really understand what they do. They just own stuff, and that's about it. I'm sorry, but if you're going to focus so hardcore on the people in a business, you need to do it more interestingly, because those are specifically the scenes that slow down the film to a crawl. Also, kind of like what Mike said, there is no chemistry between our 2 leads here, which is weird because they actually both have a level of charisma that works very, very well, especially Aaliyah. But the chemistry wasn't strong, and when a huge portion of the film is featuring a romance, it needs to be strong. since it all kind of hinges on that, or at least it should hinge on that anyway. Unfortunately, the chemistry does not work, and neither does all the focus on the business side. It mostly just leaves one thing, and one thing only: the martial arts. And hey, the martial arts was great, but that means that the film as a whole was not well-rounded, and that's going to affect my biased and unbiased score. So let's take a look at that from a technical, unbiased perspective. The editing of the martial arts was really great. So was the choreography. Top-notch stuff. But anything regarding the focus of the business side of the story or the chemistry between our two leads, none of it really stood out, and some of it was just plain nothing to me. So this score isn't the greatest, not the worst, because the fighting was good technically. So this score is 68%. My bias score is a little bit lower, but not by much, because in general, I enjoyed the movie. At no point did I really care to stop watching it, nor did it ever, offend me or anything. I took it at face value. So basically, great fight scenes, not much more. 66%, meaning that when we combine those two scores together, we come to the final rating of 67%. 67 out of 100 possible stars. So thanks to Mike for joining me again for this review. I hope that we get together again one more time to talk about another Jet Li film before too long. I have a couple more ideas that we could do, if you're interested, of course. But guys, one last time, let's hear it from Mike. Head over to his channel, give him some love, subscribe to his stuff, comment on his stuff, watch his stuff. And as for YouTube, you guys know what to do. Hit that like, subscribe button, and bell to be notified when I come out with my next review. And until then, peace out.